Hello and welcome. No matter where you are, good morning, good evening, good night. It is a great day to be in this experience of separation, thinking we have a body, and witnessing the massive, massive changes that are taking place in the world. Now, today is episode 253, I believe, and it is a continuation of what we started talking about last week, which was looking at the what is forgiveness in A Course in Miracles. And we spent last week reading what the definition of A Course in Miracles gives us for forgiveness. Actually, I think I am going to review that super quickly. And I had pulled my sticky. Let me see. What is forgiveness is inside of the Course in Miracles workbook, which is where the lessons are. And what is forgiveness shows up right before lesson 221. And it is in my book, page 401, and I have the third edition of the Course in Miracles. The most important thing to understand about what forgiveness is all about, according to the Course, is that we are forgiving our brothers and sisters for what they never did. That is radical. That is extremely different than what the world teaches about forgiveness. The world, which means the ego, teaches that forgiveness is you did something to me, and I am going to bestow upon you the forgiveness because I'm a better person than you are. Now, I may forgive and not forget, but I get to give you something that is so righteous because of the terrible thing that you did to me. That's how the ego handles forgiveness. And because of that form of forgiveness, which is very unloving, yes, to the world, it appears that it is a loving thing. And it's the best that we can do inside of the low frequency of egoic idea of love. But when you are committed to ascending to a higher frequency of love, meaning you are committed to understanding the perfect love that God is the creator of, God is the source of perfect love. What we are doing is training our mind to move in the direction. That's why we call it ascension. When we look at this particular chart, the spiral, it looks like we are ascending, but we're not. If you look at it from the top, we're expanding. If you look at it from the top, it's a circle, and at the center of it is where the ego is, where we're contracted. We are totally, completely in a state of believing, and it's all belief because none of this is happening. We believe that we're separate from everybody else because our mind has been closed down, has we have walled up our thoughts so that, and by the way, welcome everybody, walled up our thoughts to believe that we are separate and alone. That is that is what allows us to have this experience of separation. But you cannot be separate from God. If you look at the spiral from above, you spiral in, and just because we forget what we are doesn't mean we're not inside of what created us, which is God. We are in the mind of God. We are within God. And we have to understand that we always have to be inside of that which is infinite. If there is no infinite God, then there would be a finite God and us outside of it. But that's not the way that it is. We are inside of God, so God is infinite, forever expanding. If our mind is trained with misinformation, very specifically lies, things that are not true, things that have been promoted by the church, by the government, by the school system, by our parents, by the way that this society has indoctrinated us into, agreements that we are believing, things that we have accepted. Because we are believing those things, that is not what God says is our birthright, is how we should be with one another. And God doesn't say you should be this way. God says this is what you are. What you're doing is choosing not to be what you are, because we are perfect love just as God says that we are. And the best illustration is when we look at a brand new baby. And you can look at a baby for a couple of months until they begin to experience themselves as separate and begin to start manipulating the parents. And usually that happens more into the toddler years. But in the beginning, you look at a baby, that's about as close to perfect love as we're gonna get. A parent, when they give birth to a child, for a little tiny while, have that perfect love as well. They feel just overwhelmed by the love of this child that they have brought into the world. For a little while, you feel that total unconditional perfect love. That child can do nothing wrong. Everything about it is beautiful, magical, and it's blissful. Then starts the ego, the worries about, oh my gosh, the bill for having the baby, the I gotta keep the baby safe. Do I have enough food in the house? I gotta get back to work. Is my body gonna look good? When am I gonna lose this baby weight? And then the ego kicks in. Now the love becomes very conditional. Ask any parent. If they're being honest, we are very concerned about how our child makes us look. Are you behaving so people can see that I'm a good parent? Are you dressed in a certain way so that people can see that I'm a good parent? Are are your manners on track? Are you going to school? Are you getting good grades? I want to make sure the teachers know that I'm doing my part at home. So conditions kick in right off the bat. But there are moments of that perfect love. And in that place of perfect love, we get to experience God's love for us. That is what we are remembering. That is what this whole journey of awakening is to remember who we are as God created us. So we are in the mind of God, absolute perfect love. And because we begin to have the idea that maybe I'm separate from God, and the reason we have the idea is because we can. We have been given free will to think anything we want to think about. And when we have the idea, well, what if I'm separate from God? You can have that thought. It's absolutely perfectly okay. But the Course tells us that when we had that idea, what if I'm separate from God? In the moment that we took that idea seriously, we begin to create walls in our consciousness. We begin to forget who we are. And little by little, we begin to spiral inward and contract ourselves and become these ideas that we believe that we are. Then we have the experience of being born, and our family tells us, oh, you are Lina, you are Bob, you are, Susie. This is your name, and this is who you are. This is your religion. This is your financial status. This is your cultural, this is what your culture does. So we begin to be programmed to become what our parents tell us is what we are. And it happens in what appears to be so innocently. And it truly is, I don't know too many parents that when their children is born, I don't really know a single one. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but I don't know a single one that from the moment their child is born, they're saying, hey, I'm going to fill up your mind with a bunch of bullshit, and that's going to turn you into who you are. We don't do that. It's a very gradual process because the parents' minds have been filled up with um, BS. You can call it belief systems, you can call it bullshit. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. So our mind gets filled with information that then has us believe who we are is this identity, which is not what God created us to be. God created us to be adventurous, uh, perfect, loving, absolutely completely joyous, living in the moment, because there's only now, as far as God is concerned. We were created to be these beautiful, amazing, adventurous explorers of consciousness, of creation. Because we are born, we have the experience of birth and separation, we contract and forget that we're here on an adventure. And here's the kicker: it's an adventure that we chose to have. But because we're not reminded of that when we are little, we take what is happening to us as somehow done to us, and I have no choice, and it's against my will. Well, that's true for the identity. That's true for the ego. The part that is being programmed to believe things, and this is how it should be, and this is how my parents should treat me, this is how grandparents behave. When it doesn't match that, then we begin to feel, well, I've just been victimized. Somebody's hurting me. Somebody's telling me to do something I don't want to do. Because our adventurous self, our holy self, that inner child that is the light of the world, knows that it should be expanding and knows it should be happy and joyful. That inner knowing is there. And then we're met with a world that is saying, no, you don't get to do what you want to do. You're going to do what I want you to do. So we begin to pull back and feel the contraction because of what others are doing to us in that moment. But what they're doing to us, when the ego is interpreting it, it is being interpreted as you're hurting me, you're not listening to me, I have no value, I have no worth, I don't matter. What did I do wrong? So we internalize what is happening instead of listening to the inner being within us that if it could speak, 'cause some of the things that happen to us as children that define our victim story happen when we are so little that we can't speak. But if we were using our voice, which is one of the lessons that we have to learn as we move down this path of ascension or of expansion, is if we didn't use our voice as a child and say, hey, stop doing that to me. That's not okay. It doesn't feel good. It's not appropriate. I don't like it. I don't want it. If we would have just been using our voice and stating exactly how we were feeling in the moment, we wouldn't have contracted and then made up the story. Nobody's listening to me. But because we did not use our voice then, for the rest of our lives, we're going to get opportunities to use our voice over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until we get how much our voice matters. But if we don't use it, then how is that anybody's fault? It's nobody's fault that we don't use our voice. And yes, a lot of people want to say, but as a child, if I would have used my voice, if I've spoken up, they would have, spanked me or they would have hurt me. Well, if you honor yourself, whatever they did would not have mattered because you would have used your voice and you would have known that you used your voice. And whatever happens in the 3D world, when you use your voice, there's a knowingness inside of you that you value you. And whatever others do does not matter. But because we don't use our voice, because we believe that we're less than, because we fall into the conditioning that has us think that we're separate and alone and God is upset with us. God's going to be mad when God finds out that we're playing hide and seek, that we went into hiding and we're off into this world where we are denying God. We experience what is known as unconditioned or unconscious guilt, which deep down inside, we know our voice matters. We know that we are worthy. We know that we are as God created us. That part of us knows that. But because we stop listening to that, it basically becomes, it's like we turn down the dimmer and it turns into a very small little light. And what happens, what amplifies is our identity as a victim for what was done to us. And everybody starts off in that victim identity. But here's the thing, the ego, when you look at the egoic identity, it has two sides, just like a coin. The side that is the victim and the side that is the bully. So as the one who grows up as a child who is the victim of circumstances, the victim of what happened to us, then we create the bully. And the bully shows up in one of two ways. The bully then becomes aggressive, whether you start telling your brothers and sisters what they have to do, whether you start bullying the kids in school because you're being bullied at home, you're a victim at home, so you become a bully in school. And so that becomes an aggressive person, or the other part of the bully is passive aggressive. I won't use my voice so I can manipulate people that way. And we don't really understand the implications of this until we can move into the stage of the journey that we become honest with ourselves. Passive aggressive is I'll withhold my voice to get my husband to do what I want him to do, or I'll withhold I won't say anything. I won't let them know that I'm angry, and they'll just have to guess. They'll have to suffer because I just won't say what I'm really thinking. They ask me a question. Well, what do you think about this? Or how would you like to do that? Oh, it's okay. Whatever you decide, I won't say anything because internally we're being passive aggressive. Again, the other thing is we can be aggressive, which is more obvious. We know those personalities that will beat somebody up, that will yell at somebody, that will tell somebody what they need to do, that is a controlling person. We know that. The one that's a little harder to recognize is the passive aggressive. But that's the only way that the ego can show up when it's in bully mode. And everybody who has an identity as a victim has the bully side. And the bully side, even if it doesn't really show up to hurt others, like I said, it shows up as passive aggressive. I'll go out and I'll spend money, or I'll go out and I'll do something, or I'll go out with my girlfriends and I'll lie about what I did because I'm not going to tell my husband, or I'm not going to tell my partner, I'm not going to tell my wife, whatever it is. We are playing games at manipulating the outer world. All of that, the victim and the bully, all of that carries internally unconscious guilt. And the reason we have unconscious guilt is because deep down inside, we know that we're supposed to be perfect love. Perfect love doesn't do those things. Perfect love doesn't manipulate. Perfect love speaks up. Perfect love has no fear. That's why whether it's in the Bible or whether it's in the Course in Miracles, perfect love casts out all fear. Because we don't operate with perfect love, we have fear. Because we have fear, the little voice inside of us, the ego voice says, oh, if I'm caught, I'm going to get in trouble. That makes us feel guilty. Part of this path is to come to the place that we recognize that guilt, because that guilt, until we admit that we feel guilty for not being perfect love, for not being who we are as God created us, we cannot advance to the next level on this journey because we're holding a secret. And secrets, they fester, they create problems for us. So we have to get really honest with ourselves. And we cannot be honest with ourselves until we accept that we are as God created us. Because the guilt is that I have not been who God created me to be. I have played the role of victim. I have played the role of bully. I have been unloving. I have been using conditional love. I have been codependent. I have been manipulative. I have played games with people's emotions. I have done things that have been selfish, service to self, to make me safe, make me protected, make me look good. And when we get really honest that we have manipulated the world to keep ourselves safe, that we have been in relationships or in jobs or in situations we didn't really want to be in, but we didn't say anything because we were keeping the peace, meaning passive aggressive, or we have guilt that we have hurt people, we have controlled people, we have manipulated people into doing things to keep us safe, then we've been aggressive. When we can be honest about the distinction between who we are as God created us, and we can sit with the knowingness of our holy perfection. When we can sit with that, then we can recognize that we haven't been that. We haven't been operating that way. So that's when we have to address the guilt, the unconscious guilt that I haven't been my loving self. I didn't use my voice. I wasn't gentle. I wasn't patient. I wasn't kind. Then we have to sit with the guilt. But here's the trap. The ego won't let you see that you are wholly perfect because it perpetuates that you are a victim to justify why you have been operating in service to self, why you have been selfish. because the mind justifies, I had to do all these things to survive. Well, if you know that what you are is pure perfection, what are you surviving? You're the creator of the world. You're the creator of your own reality. Why did you create a reality where you had to survive? It makes no sense. Logically, it makes no sense. You wouldn't create a world where you have to survive unless you believe that you had to survive, which means you're believing the identity that we have taken on as a separate expression of in this incarnation. So the mind has to be, you have to outsmart your own mind. You got to turn inward and look at the beliefs that you have. And when you acknowledge that you are the awareness, the presence of awareness, the observer of those beliefs, you begin to sort out those beliefs into two piles. And there's only two piles, so you don't have to do more than that. A lot of psychology makes us do, lots of different things. If you look at really, many wonderful charts that tell you have, nine personalities or nine types or 23 whatever, or all of these constellations and all of these things. All of those things are absolutely beautiful and wonderful. I've read many of them. I found that so many of them were helpful. But it really comes down to two things. That's when we make the greatest advance in our spiritual awakening. One pile is love, perfect love. One pile is fear. When we get honest that we have been operating from fear, that we are protecting ourselves, that we are trying to keep ourselves safe, then we can admit, yes, I've been selfish. Everything has been about me. My whole story has been about me. When we can make that statement, yes, I have been operating in service to self, to myself, little s self, then you can unpack your ego. You can see all of the things that keep you from operating in service to the higher self, the greater good. Because when you understand who you are as God created you, you're one with all that is. This is when we move into the part of the journey where we practice the atonement. We recognize that we're one. Therefore, did anybody ever hurt me? Could anybody have hurt the self that I am? No. This is what real forgiveness is. I'm forgiving. I'm recognizing that what I thought somebody did never happened. So when we get to the place, and it requires a level of maturity, because it requires a level of understanding, logic has to be applied, that you realize that what you are is non-physical. When you know that what you are is pure consciousness, you can call it energy if that's something you're comfortable with. When you know that you are in the mind of God and what God is non-physical, God is not a man on a cloud. That is not what God is. God is perfect love, pure consciousness, eternal creative frequency. That is what God is. That's what we're made of. When we accept that that is what we are, then we can look at who we have been thinking we are with so much, gratitude and enjoyment and amusement. Oh, wow, look, I've been playing the role of Laina. This Latin girl that was abandoned by her dad and went on to manipulate men to feel safe. I deserve an Oscar for that performance. When you can look at it that way, and this is no longer who you are, but the role that you've been playing, and you accept who you are, then there's nobody to blame, which is why the forgiveness of the Course in Miracles becomes so, so simple. I'm going to read it exactly as it is in the Course. And let me find that page again. Forgiveness recognizes what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. That is in What is Forgiveness, inside of the workbook for students on page 401. I'm going to read it again because it bears repeating. Forgiveness recognizes what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. Your brother. Who is your brother? All beings are our brothers. You could call it your sisters too, brothers and sisters. And who is that? Your mother, your father, your teacher, your grandparents, your uncles, your cousins, your boss, your best friend, your spouses, they are all the president, they're all our brothers and sisters. They're all our brothers because everyone is the son of God, the child of God. To get to that place where you are accepting who you are, your mind has to be pretty well trained in understanding the difference between that which is physical and temporary and that which is non-physical and eternal. Your mind has to reconcile the two. You have to get comfortable with quantum physics. This is why Einstein taught us that E equals mc squared. Energy equals the matter that we see. When you can have that very logical recognition, what I am is not this body, that's when you're going to be free. When you accept that you are the non-physical energy that animates this body. And when you are clear that that is who I am, now you know what God is. Now you have an understanding of the perfect love that God is because God is one with all that is. And there is a recognition I'm having a human experience. And I played a role, and others played roles for me. And the reason others play roles for me is for us to realize how easy it is for us to give up our voice, how easy it is for us to give up the truth of who we are, how easy it is to fall into the illusion. And when we fall into the illusion of separation, we carry the guilt of having done that to ourselves. At first, we carry the guilt that we did this to God. Oh my gosh, God created me to be on an adventure, to be an adventurous explorer of the universe. And instead, I hid myself inside of a limited identity, and I've been suffering all this time when God created me to experience happiness. There's guilt that's going to come up. I feel bad that I did this. I had all this power and I used it against myself. There is going to be a moment of that recognition. I was completely unaware that I did this. And this is why we have to understand that God is not going to punish anybody. That's why even in the Bible, God throws a party for the prodigal son. Whether you remember who you are and you stay living inside of your father's mansion, aware of who you are as God created you, or you wander off like one of the brothers did, and you end up squandering everything that was given to you, but you come back home. Everybody gets the same welcome party. Everybody gets the same acknowledgement. We're not going to focus on what you did. We're going to focus on who you are. This awareness of these two aspects of ourselves is the greatest sign of spiritual maturity. If you cannot honestly say, I know that I am non-physical, and you know it, and you feel it in every fiber of your being, and you will feel it if you believe it. So you have to have the mind training first. You have to have the thoughts in your mind first until you logically can make that click that says, yes, and don't believe Laina. Just if you want to follow the science, oh my goodness, I probably shouldn't say that right now. Well, we're going through all the Fauci ouchie, stuff that's going on, the theater that's taking place out there. But if you follow the science of Einstein, brilliant man, then you would understand that E equals mc squared. Energy equals the matter that you see. The matter that you see is made up of the energy that you don't see. So when you accept that and you accept that you are the energy that cannot be seen, now you actually can see into the truth of who you are. This is when the third eye begins to open up. This is when you can begin to see beyond just the physicality because there is a knowing that is informing your vision. So you're seeing a body, but you know that that's not a body. That is a divine soul. That is a brother or sister that never did anything to hurt you. They couldn't hurt you. The soul, the essence doesn't hurt us. The personality did things that were unloving and unsavory and could be physically painful. Yes, the Course does not deny that these things happened to you, to your body, to your physical vessel, to your personality, to your ego. but it never happened to who you are as God created you. So what is happening right now, the reason forgiveness is so important, is humanity is moving into, we're being positioned for ascension. And actually, it's already taken place. So when I share this, it's just for you to be honest, which is a characteristic of a teacher of God, for you to be honest about where are you on this path. Too many people are chasing enlightenment, chasing awakening, chasing being spiritual, but haven't done the deepest work. And the deepest work is the acknowledgement of who we are as God created us. And when we do that, everything that is unloving, everything that is unkind, everything that we feel guilt and shame will rise to the surface for us to make that choice. Is this true or not? And many times we're going to be swayed. Oh, yes, it's true. Look, it happened to me. I've got a date. It happened in 1943. I have a date. It happened in 1961. It happened in 1983. It happened on April 3rd of, 2001. We have those dates. If you are operating from, yes, here's the evidence of what happened to me, then you're not prepared to let it go. And that's part of the honesty, because the honesty comes when we have practiced trusting the truth of who we are, and to really get to the place that we can embody fully who we are, meaning we accept that we are the non-physical consciousness that is using this body vessel, because the two merge. You're not here to become divine and enlightened and poof, you're gone. You are here. We are here. We volunteered to have this experience of separation and incarnation so that we would wake up, use this body vessel, infuse it with the truth of who we are, and then be the change we want to see in the world. So we have a body for a reason, and that's what we travel in this incarnation. But we have to bring these two together. Our mind has to be clear that what we are is the non-physical perfect love, the intelligence that is no longer going to be content with dilly-dallying with the things of the world. We're not here to collect baubles and stuff. We're not here to gather accolades. We're not here for what people say that we are and get diplomas and have things on the walls that we can say, oh yeah, I did that. Look at me. Oh wow, I'm so special. That's what happens in an unconscious experience. The 3D world is about the materialism, the matter matters. When we're moving into a higher dimension, that doesn't matter at all. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even exist. That's what's so funny about this. When you realize, oh my gosh, this is just all, we're just playing. We're infinite artists playing with energy that appears to be solid. But none of it exists and none of it has any value. None whatsoever. But we spend so much of our incarnation time accumulating and gathering and creating a self-worth based on our net worth, what we have. And if we don't have enough, then we feel insignificant. We feel like we failed, and we feel like we're not going to be safe. All of those are distractions from the work that is required, which is the acceptance of who we are as non-physical. Because when our mind can accept that, even if you don't fully understand it, and that's a beautiful thing. You don't have to fully understand it to accept it. When you accept it, you are then in a place of allowing all that wants to express through you, allowing the infinite creativity, new ways of doing things, new ways of showing up in the world, so that we're not doing the same old thing expecting different results. We bring in new things that bring us different results. But that newness can only come through one who becomes a willing vessel for that level of creativity, that level of perfect love to flow through us. Because that is what the world needs now more than anything, is examples of how to be in this world, forgiving those for not knowing what they're doing, not remembering who they are, just as Jesus exampled for us on the cross. And we've been lied to about so much of that Jesus story That sweet Jesus can't even rest in peace on the other side. He's working for 2,000 years, 24/7, channeling through so many people to get us these messages, one of which is A Course in Miracles, a thick book to tell us you are perfect love. So, how long are we going to resist accepting the truth of who we are? Because when we accept the truth of who we are, life becomes fun and easy. It gets peaceful. And I know there are people who say, but Laina, I don't see where your life is filled with, abundance and you don't have all these things. But what people that focus on that don't understand that I'm probably one of the most peaceful people, most joyful people that they've ever met. But they don't value peace and joy. They value the valueless, which is the material stuff. And the thing is, you can't take it with you. That's how you know what has value, what doesn't. You can't take the material stuff with you. But what you do take is the peace. You take the level of consciousness that you arrive at so that in that consciousness, any future incarnations, or maybe you decide not to incarnate, becomes possible because you know who you are. You don't need to come back and get lessons to figure out who you are. You don't need to come back and be a victim again to find your voice. You can find your voice right now and stop playing the victim role. Don't entertain that story anymore. It happened, well, let it be a photo in a photo album, just like you have pictures from when you were 3 years old, and it can just sit there, but it doesn't have to be a constant um, gnawing idea that perpetuates your identity, that you operate from that. And most people don't even know that they're operating from the victim mentality. They think, oh no, I'm not a victim, I'm successful, look at me go. Well, what motivates all that going and striving and becoming? It's the victim part. Oh, now I'm an adult, I get to do things my way because when I was a kid, I couldn't. That's a pendulum swinging. I'm going to do this because I couldn't when I was this. That's operating from the ego. Course in Miracles tells you if you understand forgiveness is recognizing that what we thought our brother did to us did not happen. It's a clean slate. You literally give yourself permission today to not be run by an old story. You are now in the now moment. What do I want to create instead? What do I want to create? What do I want to enjoy as an adventurous, eternal, youthful child that we are? What do we want to create today? Today, what do I feel like doing? And that informs you and allows you to experience your happy, joyful self. Most of us are doing what we should do so that we can be seen as good and successful or whatever. We don't want to be seen as irresponsible and lazy. What do I feel like doing today? Today I feel like doing nothing. I just want to hang around. Bruno Mars wrote a song about that. Today I think I don't want to do anything. But we don't let ourselves do that because we have the guilt. This guilt's going to keep coming up until we understand what it is all about. Today, we're going to look at chapter 13 in the text. We're going to spend a little time in this. This is going to be a series. This is chapter 13. The title of it is The Guiltless World. This is painting a picture for us how we created a guilty world, which is the third dimension, and how and what it is that we need to do to work on our own guilt, release that guilt from within ourselves, because you gotta see it to heal it. You got to feel it to heal it. You got to let yourself feel this stuff come up. And one of the things that the ego does is, it suppresses information. Well, we don't want to touch that. We don't want to feel that painful stuff. Well, when you look at it with awareness, it's not painful, it's information. And you sit and you let that irritation become an invitation, and you look at every single situation that you get upset, because every time we're upset, we're casting that guilt out there. And that is what keeps the 3D world going. If you're tired of this 3D world and you want a better place, then you need to clean it up inside. And from the inside, you will project the happy dream that the Course is saying is possible. But to have a happy dream as our reality, well, one person by themselves is not going to change the overall appearance. But one person, when you do this for yourself, you'll be happy amongst the insanity of the 3D world. That should be enough. That's enough for me. I don't need to do anything else. But I love sharing as much as Jesus loves sharing. Why? Jesus found a way. I listen to Jesus, and I have found my way into being peaceful and happy and joyful. I have nothing to accomplish in this world. Zero. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to become anything because I've accepted that I am who I am as God created me. From that place, I'm living my happy life. And it doesn't have to be spectacular. Jesus didn't die didn't leave a trust fund for his heirs filled with stuff, because the more you hold on to, the more it weighs you down into the third dimension. And this is what people have to work through. We have to work through the conditioning. This is why it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than it is for a rich man to get through that eye of the needle. You know, you're rich, you're holding on to stuff. You go through the eye of the needle, that small little space you can't get through because your hands are holding on to stuff. But the camel is going to go through there because the camel's not holding on to anything. So we experience, I teach this all the time. The irritation becomes an invitation for you to make a decision. This thing that is upsetting me, I want to find out where it's coming from. It's going to be a projection. It will always be a projection. What bothers you about somebody out there, or what you covet in somebody out there, oh, they're so amazing. They've got these abilities. They're the great artist. They're so smart. They're so beautiful, is a denial of what is inside. And all of that comes with unconscious guilt, which is not accepting who we are as God created us. Instead, we were projecting it on others. So we're going to look at the introduction to this specific chapter here. Let me get my little pencil so I can follow along with what I'm saying. If you did not feel guilty, you could not attack. Just listen to that. This is why I say the irritation is an invitation. Everything that irritates you, there is an attack taking place. Whether you're attacking another or yourself, it's an attack. If you did not feel guilt, you could not attack. For condemnation is the root of attack. Condemnation meaning I'm blaming me, I'm blaming you. It is the judgment of one mind by another as unworthy of love and deserving of punishment. Let's be really clear about that. When we look at somebody out there, you are to be blamed. You caused the suffering of all these people. You caused the death of all these people. You caused, the bankruptcy of all these people. We can sit here, especially if you're watching the media, and you're going to get a long list of people. Well, depends on which media you watch. On one side, you're going to get a long list of people to blame. These are the bad people. On the other side, you're going to get a long list of these are the good people. These are the saviors. Either one of them, we're projecting on them something that inside of us has not been addressed. Why? Because if you did not feel guilt, you could not attack. If you are at peace because you found the peace that passes all understanding within you, who are you going to be attacking? Who would you be pointing the finger at? Who would you be blaming? Who could be better than you? If you're at peace, do you need anything? You in that contentment, nothing is missing. In that contentment, you go about doing, life. You're in the world, but you're not of it. You're in the world, you have a job, you make money, you pay the bills, things get taken care of, but you're at peace. The economy crashes, it doesn't affect you. You'll sit waiting for the guidance in total entitlement for the miracle. As lesson 77 teaches us, you're entitled to miracles, but you won't experience the knowingness that allows you to be entitled to miracles until you accept that you are, as God created you, entitled to miracles. So that's why your mind has to be trained. That's why we have to go through a level of development to mature in our spiritual path, because you can't keep thinking human things and have an experience with the spirit that you are. It's just not possible. So here it is being laid out for us. Sometimes this doesn't make sense until we've read it many times, until we have had experiences. This is why in the Awareness Academy, I love helping break this down, and then we get to talk about it, and people learn from each other's experiences and stories. I cannot stress enough the importance of being in a community that helps you see how to apply this into your own life, because the ego lies to us. The ego always tells us we're way more advanced than what we are, or it tells us we're not quite as advanced as we should be. Either one, the ego loves to take us into those pendulum swings where we know way more or where we don't know enough. And sometimes the ego tells us, well, we know all this. We don't need to go to a class. But then deep down inside, we feel guilty. We feel embarrassed that we're still angry, we're still suffering. But we'll say that in the quiet of our quiet moments, because we're embarrassed, because we have guilt, but we don't want to admit it in front of anybody else because I'm a life coach, I'm an energy healer. I already know all this. I don't need to be in a class. That would be embarrassing. I see that all the time. It's okay. And I only know it in others because I know I went through that myself. But I understood that the irritation was an invitation that was given to me to help me use it on a regular basis to be honest with myself. So I just share what I have discovered. Jisha showed me the way that he came to know the truth. I'm just showing you the way that I have come to know the truth. So the rest of this, sentence number 2, it is the judgment of one mind by another as unworthy of love and deserving punishment. That's how you know the ego is, ooh, excuse me. That's how you know the ego is active. It is withholding love from another. We close our heart. You don't deserve my love. You don't deserve my kindness. You don't deserve my attention. You don't deserve my gentleness. And that's how we are being dishonest with ourselves, because we believe that we can shut love off. That's how we don't know who we are. We are perfect love. Love flows when the ego is not in control. When the ego is in control, meaning the thought system of separation is in control, of identity, of I got to take care of me, it's all service to self, we withhold that love. And we did it when we were little. When we did not use our voice, that's the beginning of withholding love to ourselves. And we didn't know that we were withholding love to ourselves. We thought I'm protecting myself by withholding love from another. So this is what we started doing when we were little. I am going to condemn you. You did something mean to me. Now my mind is judging your mind as unworthy of my love, and you deserve punishment. So I'm not going to love you. But here's what happens, because there's only one of us here, all of that is on yourself. Now I'm punishing me because I'm not flowing the love that I am. And because I'm not flowing the love that I am, I'm hearing the voice in my head justifying why you should be punished. And then I grow up with that victim mentality. They hurt me. I have to protect myself. And now you're in a double bind because you're believing that the power is out there to hurt you when you're the one who's hurting yourself because you are not being who you are. You have accepted an identity as a victim. And like the game of hot potato, you can't hold that hot potato for very long. You're going to throw that potato on somebody else. You're going to terrorize your sibling. You're going to terrorize the cat, the dog, the bunny. You're going to do something to get that out of you. And that's where we become aggressive or passive aggressive, which turns us into a bully. There's no way to just be a bully out of nowhere. That doesn't happen. It comes from the pendulum swinging from victim to something that feels a little bit better. And yes, when you're being a bully, it is a little higher frequency than being the helpless, powerless victim. It's a little bit higher. But because we are not understanding consciously how that is energy moving out towards, moving out of us, because we don't understand that we remain in a low frequency band. where one is a little higher than another, but if it's so low frequency, it's what difference does it make to say, oh, well, I'm a victim, or "Oh, I'm a bully, I'm a little higher than the victim." It doesn't help you. What helps you is to use that energy that wants to express itself and use your voice to express it. But we are going to go through the different levels of consciousness until we get to the place that we can accept that what we are is perfect love. And if we don't use that irritation to see how we are hurting ourselves, we will never be able to fully wake up and move out of this third dimensional density, which is the density of suffering. For us to be able to experience a happy dream, we've got to move at least into that fourth dimension. Fifth dimension is a whole different story. Fourth dimension is the dimension of doing the work, of crossing the bridge, of being on the bridge, where you are looking at things, where you're looking back at the third dimension and going, okay, let me learn from these lessons. Of course, it's telling you here exactly how to learn from this lesson of this this world that is filled with guilt. And for us to co-create a guiltless world, we're being told how to acknowledge the guilt within us first. Sentence 3 says, but herein lies the split. For the mind that judges perceives itself as separate from the mind being judged, believing that by punishing another, it will escape punishment. Here is the trap. And the movies show us this. We hear stories about this. Our parents talk about this. They model it for us. They blame somebody and think that they're better off because of they found who to blame. Dinner table conversations about how bad, how corrupt the government is. They are corrupt. But yet, do we look at the corruption in our own mind? Our mind is so corrupt when it believes things that are not true. That's where the corruption starts. It's within us. It's been corrupted. So we have to be honest. A characteristic that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. We think we're being honest. Oh, I spoke the truth, but are you speaking the truth in the unconscious world, or are you speaking the truth as a conscious being? Those are very different. Very, very different. Because we told the truth about, I didn't touch your whatever. I didn't steal the money. That could be true. But underneath, are you lying to yourself, telling yourself you're not good enough? That's a corrupted mind. So every single time that you have an irritation and you're pointing at somebody else, please stop and look at what is that in you that you have been denying. And this is obviously where coaching is so helpful. I don't take any new coaching clients anymore. As a matter of fact, my coaching practice is not something that I promote, because I'm only working with people who are pretty advanced on their journey. I don't have to convince them to do this work. They already know that that's the only way out. But in the academy, we get to have these experiences because we're sharing what's happening, so we can see a mirror back. Even if we're not prepared to talk about our own, we can see it in another, and that is helpful as well. But until you are ready to see that punishing another, blaming over there, is a form of self-punishment, because you're the one carrying the density of the guilt. You're the one carrying the density of the shame. And no amount of blaming somebody else cleans up what's over here. As a matter of fact, it's what keeps your mind believing that you're better than them, keeps your mind thinking that you have risen above. Well, especially if you're a Course in Miracles student, my gosh, the ego loves to be a Course in Miracles student who's spiritualized, and none of that is real anyways, while holding all that guilt within, that shame within. Sentence number 5 says, all this is but the delusional attempt of the mind to deny itself, to deny the ego, and escape the penalty of denial. It is not an attempt to relinquish denial, but to hold on to it. For it is guilt that has obscured the Father to you, and it is guilt that has driven you insane. We think we're sane, but inside we're crazy. We're batshit crazy when we think that there's something wrong with us. When we think that we're not good enough, when we think that somebody has power over us. That's crazy. What makes us sane is to be willing to look at everything that we're thinking about another and then check where do I believe that about myself? And I'll tell you, you've got to think about the ego pretty much like an iceberg, where you see 5% sticking above the water and the rest is anchored in the bottom. The only way that I have found to really see what's below the surface is that irritation that brings up, wells up that judgment that we then push on the other as a form of denying the ego's trickery to deny that that's in me. You're bad, you're a liar, you're a cheater, you're a murderer, you're corrupt. I don't do any of that. But if you're not accepting that you are as God created you, you're a liar. You're a cheater. You're corrupt. You're a murderer. You're in essence killing, attempting to kill because you can't do it, which is the crazy part. We're attempting to do all these things that we cannot do, so that's why we suffer. And then we have the death experience, as Abraham says, we croak and we're on the other side and we go, "Oh my gosh, I made all that up." You know, wow, that was a lot of fun. That's a great role. Like an actor or an actress in Hollywood, let me go back and play another part. Because it's fun and it's exciting when you're on the other side realizing I'm an adventurous soul. I get to play any role that I want. And then we get down here and we forget that we chose to be here. We chose all of our characters. It's a play, it's a game. I know it's hard to hear when you're immersed in the victim story. This is so hard to hear. That's why people, they argue for their limitations when I try to coach them into accepting that they're amazing, that they're truly magnificent. But boy, if you want to see somebody who is experiencing guilt, unconscious guilt, they're not conscious of it, go look on any social media who they're pointing the finger at. Who are they blaming? Who are they saying is terrible? That's the bad one. And guess what? Those who understand a lot about how the mind works are the ones who actually do the mind control that has put most of humanity under this double trance. We're in a trance already because we think we're separate, but inside of the separation, we're in another trance where we justify hurting each other, where those who move into positions of power, and obviously because they were all have victimization from the time that they were little, now move into positions of power and become bullies, and they're justified in being the bullies. Hey, we can go kill other people, we can use the military to hurt others deliberately. Well, don't you think that's a bully? But that's a whole different story. Course in Miracles wants us to understand through this simple introduction that we are projecting onto others what we need to look at is within us. If we don't, we cannot wake up. It is not possible. A lot of people are awakening. Awakening is a process. To be fully awake is to know who you are as God created you, and the rest is just a projection. It is there for my enjoyment. If I'm not enjoying the game that is being played on the screen, if I'm not enjoying the cheating and the lying, then you have an option to move to another level of the game. You can ascend to the fourth dimension, to the fifth dimension, fourth density, fifth density. I'm not so concerned about the terminology. I'm more concerned that you understand that you can move beyond that game. And there are players who want to play at the level of integrity and honesty, recognition of who we are as God created us. Those groups are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's the whole point about the academy is we are creating our own playmates for a more expanded game, what the course calls a happy dream. Let me read the next paragraph. The acceptance of guilt into the mind of God's Son, meaning you, me, was the beginning of the separation, as the acceptance of the atonement is the end. Here it tells you exactly what happened. A to Z. So, acceptance of guilt in the mind of the Son of God, you, each one of us is the one child of God. When we had that tiny mad idea, I think I'm separate from God, and we took that seriously, that was the beginning of feeling guilty. Ooh, I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing. I shouldn't be denying my oneness with God. I should not be denying my oneness with all that is. In the moment that we accept that tiny mad idea, and we don't remember to laugh at how insane that is. We forget to laugh because we took it seriously. We set like this veil between us and the truth. The incarnations are the experiences that we have to help thin that veil until eventually we can see through it. When we can see through it is when we begin the process of accepting the atonement. Atonement means at one mint. Take the word, break it down. At one mint. I accept that I am one with all that is. How can you accept that you're one with all that is if you have a body? It's not possible unless you accept that you are made of the energy that animates the body. That's what makes you one with all that is. So do you see why it takes a while to train the mind to logically understand the steps that we need to go through? And the thing that is the fastest way, that this is the quickest path to awaken. And it can happen like this, is if you just spend a moment, an instant, contemplating, what if I am one with God? What if I am made of non-physical energy? What if what I am is not this body? If you sit in contemplation of this and let yourself just allow these things to be true, even if you don't fully believe them, but don't argue with them. Don't push against them. In that moment that you accept, I am as God created me. In that moment, you have dropped the veil. In that moment, you have given yourself a miracle, a shift in perception from being 3D, being physical, material, to being non-physical, being eternal. And eternally, you are one with God. You cannot not be. That's the joke. That's the divine joke. The divine comedy of all of this is that we're acting like we're separate from God, creating all of this suffering, creating all of these situations. All the while, we are safe in the mind of God. I mean, when you think about it, it's no different than a little kid who is playing inside of their house. Let's say there's a playroom in the house, and they're playing with their sibling, cops and robbers, or cowboys and Indians, and they're shooting each other, and one falls and dies, or one goes into prison. They're all doing it inside the house where they're safe at home with their parents. But yet they're in this little room, and their imagination takes over, and that imagination creates this entire story. I'm the cowboy, you're the Indian, and I'm going to shoot you, or vice versa. All while they are safe in their own home, but pretending that they're not, pretending that they're chasing each other through, the wilderness and on a horse, and you're galloping, you're pretending galloping, and you got a gun and you shoot, and the other one falls. Oh, I'm dead. That's exactly what this third dimension is. We are safe in the mind of God. We're all at home in the mind of God, pretending that we're not. And when you accept that we're just playing these roles, pretending that we're not, the only thing that reverses that is accepting what is true, accepting where you are. And that's why we have to cultivate trust. We have to go through the steps of trust. Every single time that we experience the disappointment, the something, the relinquishment, the periods of letting go, the periods of undoing, is because it's helping us to see that on the other side of losing whatever it is that we're attached to, we can still choose to be happy. If we're not happy when we lose things, it's because our mind is still pretending that we're less than because that thing is no longer ours. But when you accept that who you are is as God created you, you don't need anything to be your happy, joyful self. Doesn't mean you can't have stuff and have fun with it, But it just means that if it comes, if it goes, you're okay either way. That's what freedom is all about. You're not bound to those things. You are free as God created you. I want to get through the next this paragraph, and then we can complete this episode 253 with having looked at paragraphs 1 and 2, and then we'll pick up next week with the next two paragraphs. Sentence number 2 says in paragraph 2, the world you see is the delusional system of those made mad by guilt. Oof, right there. You want to see why this world is so crazy and so full of corruption and so full of lies and cheaters and bullies and victims? Is because we've gone mad with this guilt. Instead of just standing up and saying, hey, I know that being loving, being caring, being compassionate, kind, gentle, telling the truth, that is really what I prefer to do. But I've lied and I've cheated and I've done things that have been hurtful. Please forgive me. Because we are not conditioned to say speaking the truth makes you a strong character. Morally, it makes you somebody who is strong. We think that by telling the truth, we're weak and we're going to get in trouble. They're going to punish us and put us in jail. People then lie and it's somehow acceptable, but we're seeing through the facade. That's what this whole episode with Anthony Fauci, Brother Fauci, is giving us all an opportunity to see how we really think we're stronger if we lie. Because we have not been teaching that in our defenselessness, our safety lies. If he just spoke the truth, instead of trying to defend himself, protect himself, those with the eyes to see, with the ears to hear, who know that we are practicing the forgiveness that recognizes that what our brother didn't happen, are going to forgive Fauci because they have nothing inside of them that they're projecting on him. That's why we don't have to make him guilty, because we don't have guilt. We recognize the truth of who we are. To get to that place, we just have to do the work, unless in an instant you give yourself the shift in perception, the miracle of accepting that you are as God created you. We're all one, and we're all just playing out this game in our Father's house, pretending that we're not, pretending that we're on a field somewhere and we're a cowboy or an Indian. Look carefully at this world, sentence number 3. Look carefully at this world, and you will realize that this is so. The world is mad with guilt. For this world is a symbol of punishment, and all the laws that seem to govern it are the laws of death. Look at how many people want Fauci dead for what he did. But if what he did never affected a single soul, what is he guilty of? Sit with that. If there is a need to judge, if there is a need to blame, it's a projection that is inside of you. Where are you judging and blaming yourself? If you don't practice the honesty that can look at that within you, you will project it and perpetuate the game out there. A world gone mad because of guilt. And the thing is that when you have that realization, wow, I've done that, your unconscious guilt is going to come up. Let it. Have a good cry. Have a tantrum. Have a moment of realizing, I did all this to myself. Yes, you did it all, not only to yourself, but you did it all by yourself. And it's okay not to make you feel guilty, but to help you see how powerful you are. You're so freaking powerful. Instead of miscreating, which is what the Course calls it, from guilt and shame and fear, let's consciously start co-creating the happy dream. Where as long as we still have a body, we do kind things to one another. We uplift one another. We stop blaming and projecting on one another. And instead, we start recognizing the truth of who we are, and we begin to uplift one another. When I think about Fauci, all I want to say is, hey, dude, you are as God created you. You are a holy child of God. You are perfect love. Why have you, instead of extending perfect love, using your positions of power in this 3D world, instead of extending perfect love, you've been doing things that were unloving. And I can promise you, we're going to go to Fauci's childhood and we're going to see a traumatized little kid. And only somebody who says, well, he's had plenty of time to do all his inner work and he should have cleaned that up. He should have done this. Well, they're clearly not going to be compassionate because they still have their own stuff that they haven't worked through. But somebody who can see the game that the illusion of separation has created, that has made us all mad, insane. We're insane. When we can see that we've all fallen into the illusion, we will be coming closer to the atonement, to realize that if I am going to wake up fully, I must not project that guilt, that separation onto the world. Because that's the only two ways of experiencing life. One is realizing that we are one so that we can collectively be drawn to one another in service to the greater good, in service to co-creating a happy dream. Or we project the guilt and it's somebody else who did it. We are just going to perpetuate the game of division, the game of separation. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But you are the one who's deciding if you want more suffering or if you want the peace and freedom that are your birthright. God didn't take those away. That's why God doesn't have to forgive us to come back to the truth of who we are, because God sees us as children playing the game of cowboys and Indians. Just as a parent, when my grandbabies are playing games, and now Ryder is into some of the things that have to do with swords and killing things. He's 5 years old. He's got a gun and he's automatic gun, and he's got a battery and it does that, and he thinks he's killing things. I don't say to him, hey, you're being a murderer. We're going to have to put you in jail now. But that is what we are doing. Even though we are adults, we're still playing childish games. God doesn't see that as a need to be punished. God is just seeing that as an opportunity for us to see how creative we are, how powerful we are. Either we accept that and wake up and create a happy dream, or we don't accept that, blame others that they took our power away, and we remain in the third dimension where the pendulum of the ego has to swing from victim to bully and bully to victim, because that is how we get the lessons that eventually tell us we're crazy. Stop believing this, so that we can wake up from that dream. But if we are not done with the suffering, if we still enjoy the guilt and the shame of being a victim, of being how bad we are, then we are going to continue to be allowed to play that game, because God allows us to play any game we want. We're the prodigal children. We're never going to be in trouble ever for playing pretend. And that's what this is. We're playing pretend. It feels real, but we're playing pretend. So let me finish this. Paragraph number 2, sentence 5. Children are born into it through pain and in pain. We're born into this painful world through the pain of the mother when we have this experience called birth. Their growth is attended by suffering, and they learn of sorrow and separation and death. Their minds seem to be trapped in the brain and its power and its powers trapped in the brain and its powers to decline if the bodies are hurt. They seem to love, yet they desert and are deserted. How can my mom do this to me? But we're supposed to be loving each other. How fascinating. Sentence 9. They appear to lose what they love, perhaps the most insane belief of all. How can you lose the love that you are? We cannot lose it. It's just been misplaced. We're not looking where that love is. We're not looking inside because we're busy blaming outside. You didn't love me enough. You didn't do this for me enough. You hurt me. You blah, 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 blah. Instead of coming in here, finding our voice and saying, hey, I'm going to love you no matter what, because love is what I am. I am perfect love, and I'm going to live in peace no matter what you're doing. I'm not going to blame you. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to give you my power. You have no power over me to make me feel bad about myself. I can do that all by myself. As a matter of fact, we do it all by ourselves. Sentence 10 says, and their bodies wither and gasp and are laid in the ground and are no more. Not one of them but has thought that God is cruel. Because we are taught, well, God's punishing you. You're being a bad little boy, bad little girl. What a lie. What a lie that has been made up. And that's why we have to understand that lies are made up. That's why this game is all made up. It's all pretend. Once you stop believing things that have been made up, all that you're left with is what is true, that is eternal, cannot be undone. But the only way to have the truth, the peace that passes all understanding, is you have to accept it. You got to stop fighting against it. You got to stop arguing against. You got to stop arguing against love. Stop arguing for your limitations. Well, I'm not good enough. I haven't read enough. I haven't studied enough. I'm not, look at my life. Look at my past. I didn't achieve enough. I don't have all the certificates. I don't have as much money. I haven't done that many things. I'm not as smart as Elon. I haven't, I can't get rockets to the moon or beyond. None of that matters. That's the ego comparing you to others. Stop the insanity. The miracle is a shift in perception, and all we need to do is just accept right now, I am as God created me. To the ego that's going to feel like you're being powerless, oh God, I got to accept this, but I don't believe it. Say it, and when you say it, and the course is filled with exercises that tell you when you acknowledge that you have one function and it's the one God gave you, thoughts that are opposite to that are going to come up. Take an inventory of those thoughts. Be familiar with the thoughts that want to tell you that's not true. But if you commit to liberation, if you believe that Jesus's way is going to get you there, or that Laina, the way that I teach is going to get you there, then put your for temporarily your trust in that we care about you, that we love you. And we love you because we are perfect love, and that's all that we have to give. I trusted that Jesus wanted that for me when I didn't believe a word of it. But I sat, and with tears running down my eyes, I would say, God gave me one function. That's the only function that I want. God says that I am perfect. And man, my ego had a field day telling me how much I was deluded. That's not true. Look at what you've done. And I would just sit and hear all those thoughts. And that is the purification process. When those thoughts come out of you and you let them go, I'm not going to believe that shit anymore. I'm not going to believe that BS anymore. It is pure bullshit that there's anything about me that is other than how God says I am. Now, it took me a while to get comfortable with sitting there in my discomfort, because my mind had been trained in a God that was punishing, a God that created hell. So I had to ease my mind. I read a lot of books. I studied a lot about religion. I studied how the Catholic Church was formed. I logically understood that it was all made up. Once I understood that there was a beginning point to Catholicism that I grew up in, and that religion was designed to control people. Once I got into the politics of it, I realized, whoa, this is all made up. And then I was able to move before that. Catholicism was created, the Universal Church was created around the year 325 by Emperor Constantine. What was there before that? The teachings of Jesus. They were distorting the teachings of Jesus because Jesus was telling us the truth, that we and God are one. And to accept that we and God are one, we have to accept that we're non-physical. God is not a person. And once I logically said, okay, so then I must be as God, as Jesus says that I am. And then I looked before that and I saw the Old Testament and I said, well, that's made up too. What was Jesus saying? Jesus was saying, no, this is not a God that demands punishment. That's why he forgave those who killed him. He was showing that he's not a body, he's non-physical. He was showing that God doesn't punish. God is not judgmental. He forgave others. So the God of the Old Testament, that couldn't be, all of it could not possibly be true. There's a lot of wonderful things in there. There's a lot of history in there. Read it for all of that, but run it through your inner knowing, run it through the discernment that allows you to recognize that there's only one truth, and that truth can only be felt. And it's when you feel yourself as one with God because you feel that perfect love within you. And if you cannot feel that, is because you have thoughts that are blocking you from that. You have thoughts telling you for some reason you can't, you shouldn't, you're not worthy. Those are the thoughts that you have to let go. To let go means to say, I don't believe that anymore. And you may say, I don't believe it, and you still believe it, but fake it till you make it. Say it over and over again until you will feel the moment that there is a shift in perception, and you will feel the miracle. And once you feel that perfection in you, that love in you, and you use logic, you will realize every one of us has that inner child inside of us. It's not a wounded child. None of us has a wounded child. We have beliefs of wounding that we have associated with our childhood. But that's not who you are. What you are is that child that is perfect and chose to have this experience of separation. Because in the moment that you had that tiny mad idea that you're separate from God and you took it seriously, you began to play an incredible game of pretend. We don't punish our children for playing pretend in the house. Cops and robbers, we don't punish them for that. So God's not going to punish us. And Jesus is a brother who decided to participate in this game, entered into the illusion, came into the room to play pretend with us, to tell us, hey, it's just pretend. The truth is, you and the Father are one. The truth is that the kingdom of heaven is within. The truth is that if you love your neighbors, it's because you have already learned to love yourself. And that's what God is. The love that is exchanged between us is what God is. And that's ultimately, as it says in here, paragraph 2, the first sentence says, the acceptance of guilt into the mind of God's Son was the beginning of the separation. We were playing pretend. As the acceptance of the atonement is the end, we have to accept that we are one. Jesus came in to accept that we are all one, forgiving us in the game of pretend. Came in as into the game of cops and robbers. And those who didn't want the game to end said, well, he's lying. But those who realize, okay, let's wake up from this game. We are following him. And man, what happens, the peace that you feel, it truly, nothing is more valuable than that. All right, my friends, that is the transmission. That's what has come through today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you get some nuggets from this. And thank you so much, sweetie. I see, I feel your love and gratitude, and I give it right back to you. And to everybody that gets to watch this now or later, it doesn't matter. We are all one. Atonement is what frees us from this insanity. We're all one. We're all made of that non-physical energy, and it is perfect love. I love you all. Bye-bye.